Good morning. If you're joining me today, it's because you've signed up to do the Unit of Competency BSB Workplace Health Safety 211, contribute to the health and safety of yourself and others. So today we're going to go through a quick lesson, and it's going to be one of those resources that you can use to help go towards your participate in the workplace health safety consultative processes. So today we're just going to focus on participate in actions to reduce risks, and we'll go through that now. Overall, this module, by the time we do our face-to-face online session, you will have contributed to workplace meetings, inspections, and other workplace health safety consultative activities. And I'll go through that towards the end of this lesson, and I'll give you a quick explanation. Identify existing and potential workplace health safety hazards, and then report those to the designated person. In this case, will be the workplace health safety rep, which will be myself. And then the last one being participate in actions to minimize or eliminate workplace hazards and to reduce risks. And that's what this session is going to be tailored towards today. So we'll start with hazards, classifications, and signs. So in your day-to-day life, you have safety signs all around you, some that you may not even acknowledge because you walk past them so regularly. They're extremely important for ensuring the well-being of workers in the workplace, and they should be prominently placed in locations where there is a risk of injury occurring because someone has assessed that there is a hazard. Safety signs reduce those likelihood and the potential of workplace health safety incidents because they bring your attention to those risks. And it also promotes general compliance for the workplace and compliance with legal requirements for you. Now, if you weren't aware, there are 7 safety signs and symbols in Australia, so relevant to all of us. Here's the first 3. So the first one of these hazard sign classifications is prohibition signs. You will see those maybe at bars or pubs and clubs. You might see no smoking signs indicated there, the circle and the red line. And do pay attention to some of these symbols that I'm talking about because this will be in your quiz within this session. So they indicate that you can't do or perform a particular action. It's prohibited. It's not allowed in that area. You may see those as well at dog parks. Maybe it's got a sign there for no smoking or no children in that area, or maybe at a children's park, maybe it says no dogs, right? The next one's mandatory signs. So it's the blue hard helmet there. It specifies that a particular action or behavior is required in that area. It's usually a blue circle with the white symbol or sometimes a message. That one there indicates that, if you walk past that sign, you are required to wear a hard hat within that area. You can find those on workplace sites. Sometimes as well, you'll see like white earmuffs, and that indicates that, hearing protection is required in that area, probably because someone's identified a hazard, a noise hazard. The third one there is the danger sign. So the presence of this sign indicates that there's possibility of a quite a severe or urgent risk or hazard, one potentially with catastrophic consequences. So yeah, usually red, a triangle with exclamation marks or black message or symbol indicates what the danger is. So the last 4, so warning signs, you can see the yellow and the black with the man there. That is a slip, trip, or fall hazard is close by. You might see that particular symbol at a shopping center. Maybe a cleaner has just mopped a spilled drink or something, and they might place out one of those cones with that indicator saying, slippery when wet. So, be careful, there's a hazard. It just denotes a potential hazard that may cause harm if it's not cautiously approached. If you drive as well, you might see those recommended speed signs. They're also yellow and with black. Maybe it's around a turn, or maybe it indicates like a high wind area. It's just approach it with caution. Then there's emergency information signs. So denoted by that green man there, obviously indicating an exit or a pathway to an exit. So it indicates the location of emergency equipment or a direction that you need to take in that emergency. So it's maybe in a hospital, it's a bit of a rabbit warren. There's lots of corridors. There might be a number of these in sequence that you need to follow in order to get to the exit, or it could be directly above an emergency exit door, for example. You'll sometimes see them as well, a green sign with the white writing. It just says exit, usually illuminated as well with a light. That's one of those as well. Next one, fire equipment signs. So denoted with that red square there with the white fire extinguisher in it. So it signifies the location of the nearest firefighting equipment or route to travel to safety. So for example, if a fire extinguisher is in a cabinet, it could be a red cabinet marked with that symbol. or perhaps it's above it directly as it's hanging from the wall, or indicating whereabouts it's stored. And then the last one there, which I hope that you're all familiar with, particularly if you're driving on the roads, is the restriction signs. So the purpose of that restriction sign is to set a boundary on a particular activity or use. And this indication here is, a speed limit sign. So saying that you're restricted to 50 kilometers an hour or less. So those are all things that people have identified, right? And they've then marked them as a control measure to bring those to your attention for your own personal workplace health and safety. So hazard identification and risk controls, there's a couple of important things that you as someone in the workplace need to be aware of. And important aspects of the risk assessment are the assessment of the probability. How likely is this risk going to come to like likelihood of it occurring or coming to fruition? And then the level of risk. And is it a low risk or is it something potentially catastrophic? Um, and then based on those, you'll assess what the consequence could be. So, for example, the consequence could be a minor injury requiring some first aid, could be a major injury. Maybe it's a severe laceration or loss of work time, lost productivity for the business as well, or it could be catastrophic, potentially resulting in like a workplace death or something in the worst case scenarios, maybe on mines or military with defense. So what you need to do basically is to assess the probability of that happening and what level of risk that is, and then the consequence. So you can see the bottom, maybe the different combination will come up with a different level of risk. So if there's a low probability of something occurring, so it's really not going to happen, and if it did happen, it would only result in a minor injury. Well, it's pretty low. Maybe a sign that we kind of went through before is suitable for that. So I'll give you an example. Going back to the slip and trip hazard sign that we spoke about earlier, or fall. If you're in a shopping center and that sign is present, that sign might be suitable. That might be enough because the probability of you slipping over is very low because it's just a mopped area that needs to be dry. And if you did fall over, it's probably going to result maybe in a minor injury, if anything, where you might just need some first aid. However, if you saw that sign on the edge of a eroding cliff, well, then the likely or the probability or likelihood of that happening is still pretty low. You're not going to get close to a cliff with any luck, but the level of risk and consequence associated with that could be potentially catastrophic. If someone fell, it would likely result in very serious harm or potentially death. The so what for that is you might mark it with a sign, but because the risk and the consequence of it coming to fruition is so high, you want additional control measures. Maybe you put up some safety railing on the edge there, or a barricade to prevent people physically moving towards the edge there and slipping and falling. So those are just some examples of how you can identify those risks and then control those risks. So once you've identified what those risks are, you then look at this hazard hierarchy. So the hazard hierarchy is a way for you to basically go through a process of elimination to try and reduce hazards so far as reasonably practicable. So the first and best one is elimination. And what that means is to get rid of the risk entirely. What that might look like is, let's say that you've found a hose that goes across a walkway, potentially or some cabling that might pose a trip hazard. You can eliminate that risk. You can roll up that hose and pack it away. The risk is now eliminated. No one's going to trip over it if it's packed away, neatly. So it's removing the risk entirely. Could be a chemical spill, so it has to go through and get cleaned up and then disposed of correctly. The next one is substitution. So if you can't eliminate the risk, maybe substitute it. So if you're in the cleaning industry, for example, and you are working in confined spaces, maybe bleach as a cleaning product isn't a great idea. Maybe it's going to cause headaches in the confined space, and it's not good for long-term exposure. So it might be better in that instance to substitute that cleaning product with maybe an eco-friendly version, one that's safe and non-hazardous, maybe with natural ingredients or something. So that's an example of substitution. So it's just replacing something for a safer, better option. Then there's isolation. So isolation is you've got a risk or a hazard, and you want to keep it separate from everything. A good example of this might be a dangerous goods cabinet. So in your workplace, you might have cleaning products or petrols, oils, or lubricants. A good way to isolate that is a dangerous good cabinet, usually red, and you can store those in there in accordance with the safety data sheets. And that is effectively isolating that in an area where it can be contained. Or maybe it's in an area of a yard in a warehouse or something. Another good example of isolation might be, let's say you're working with heavy machinery, and you can usually mark the ground around it either with caution tape, or for example marking it with yellow paint, which is very common in warehousing situations, to isolate that and say do not walk here when it's in operation or something. So you're isolating it, providing some distance. If you can't do that, you'll try and engineer solutions. So engineering a solution is basically making it safer by design. What that could be, for example, is, let's say you're working with gears in machinery. A good engineering solution, maybe you've engineered it so it has a safety protective covering, so that there's no chance of getting your clothing caught in there, or your hair or hands or something like that. Another engineering solution, maybe referring to the trip and fall hazard I was speaking about before, on the cliff, you actually put a barricade or a fence in place. You're engineering a solution because you can't mitigate a cliff. You can't just build an island that kind of joins onto it. There's a cliff there. There's nothing you can do about that. So you'll have to engineer a solution to prevent people from suffering consequence of that. Then yours administration and your safe work practices. Those are things that can be found in your workplace health safety policies and your procedures as well. So how to go about your work in a safe manner, usually in those checklists that we spoke about in module 1. And then the last one, if you've mitigated as low as you possibly can, that last final measure is PPE, or personal protective equipment. That might look like you're working in a noisy construction site. You've got dampeners, but you just can't do it, so you're going to have to wear hearing protection, or maybe you have to wear gloves because you're handling wire or something like that. So that's that last safety measure where you really can't fully mitigate it. Okay, so now we're going to hit that module checkpoint. So I'm going to get you to do a quiz in the form of a formative assessment. What you can do now is just this link here. You can pause this video and write that down. And I'd just like you to put that into your browser. And I want you to go through and do that quiz. It is going to look like this. It's just going to be a Google form. And I want you to go through it, just multiple choice. And I just want you to select the appropriate answer and then go through and submit that quiz for me. So you can do that in your own time. You'll have one attempt at that one to go through, and it'll give you immediate feedback. So you'll know if you went wrong, and it will give you the appropriate answer. And that'll be a good prelude into the next sessions, which we'll be conducting together. So in summary, workplaces can be a dangerous place. On any given day, people are injured or killed in workplaces where safety standards aren't being met or appropriately mitigated. As I kind of spoke about a little bit earlier, those work-related injuries cause a lot of downtime. So it's between 3 and 6 times as many days of work lost than industrial actions cause. So, if machinery goes down, or a vehicle breaks down or something, there might be some lost productivity for the business. What this is saying is, human risk or human downtime due to injury or rehabilitation contributes 3 to 6 times as many unproductive days. The so what for that is becoming increasingly important, and on that last point there is it's a win-win, right? It's safer for the worker if we're implementing workplace health safety measures and controls. And it's also good for the business because they're remaining productive and able to continue to work and conduct day-to-day operations. Now, despite your best efforts, injuries can still occur. You can't stop human behavior. You can do everything you possibly can to reduce those risks as low as practicable, but sometimes things happen. So it's just important that you are fully aware of those processes and procedures and workplace health safety measures, so that you can do those practices as safe as possible, and you can also assist other people in doing things as safe as possible. And then you also know how to respond to an incident if it does occur. So our next session is going to be, the other part of Module 3, the Workplace Health Safety meeting, and we will do a practical. I will be acting as the workplace health safety representative, and I will call an informal meeting to discuss some workplace health safety risks in our workplace. In that session, you'll be required to report at least one workplace health safety risk, which I'll have a simulated workplace for us to go through, and then you'll have to propose a solution to mitigate those risks. So take some of these lessons that you've got in this learning resource, and bring those to that session when you're ready to go, and we can go through the observation checklist for that assessment. As I've said in previous sessions, if you have any questions, this one's obviously a pre-recording, so send me an email or send an email to the student support services if you have any questions that you need answered. All right, thank you for participating, and I'll see you guys in the online sessions a little bit later in this module.